Hey everyone, in the early 80s, there was the Satanic Panic around Dungeons and Dragons. This is where a bunch of religious groups or concerned parents thought that D&D introduced people to the occult or taught them how to do magic spells or summon demons and stuff like that. And I was in high school and I wrote TSR and asked them if they had any material that could help me educate others, my family, or folks that I ran into. And this is what they sent me.
Adventure and intrigue. Fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed.
Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the buttons, bubbles, do the stuff. Would love your support and everything, and that'd be great. So today I want to go through material that TSR sent me directly when I sent them a letter in 1985 asking them, how can I explain the benefits of Dungeons and Dragons? How do I educate people who thought it was bringing children into the occult or teaching them how to do witchcraft or things like that? And so they sent me a packet. It was a folder, it had a lot of information in it, and I'm going to go through that. Now, I'm not going to go in depth on every page because there's a lot of material there that they sent me, a lot of articles, that sort of thing. And I'm not going to do it. It's just too much. But if you want more in depth or you want me to scan in some of the pages or walk through some of the actual text of some of the articles, I certainly can do that. Leave some comments. Let me know that that's kind of what you're interested in. Or it'd be even cool to hear, for those who are old like me, what did you learn during a satanic panic, or what did you run into, and where your parents freaked out about it or whatever? Mine weren't, but friends were. So let's go ahead and switch over to the camera and start taking a look. All right, everyone. Well, here is the folder I got from TSR in 1985 after I sent my letter to them. And so let's open it up. First thing is this pamphlet is actually, I think, what made me want to send them a letter in the first place. I don't think this came in this folder. So this was a pamphlet that I got, I believe, that talked about what D&D is in these people's minds. The most effective and most magnificent package, most profitable, marketed, most thoroughly researched introduction to the occult that man has ever seen. So there was a whole bunch of stuff in here. I think there was a couple of spots where they had some kind of allegedly experts talking about stuff who obviously, the 1985 D&D wasn't that old. So I don't know what studies they were able to do that made them think they were experts. But I think this was kind of what triggered me. And this is from the Pro Family Forum way back when. Who knows if they're even still around anymore. But this was, I think, what made me write the letter. And so in my letter, I asked if they had any material that would help, educate parents, educate my friends, whatever. And they sent back a letter. And so I'll just let you know, I'm not going to go through everything because there's a lot of stuff in this package, but I'll just take a look at a couple of the things. And if anybody really wants to get deep into the discussion, or have me like photocopy something specific, I can do that. But for now, let's just look at it from kind of a high level way. So here is the letter they sent me, which is kind of cool. Thank you for your interest. They give you some facts. Here's some information that'll give me facts to challenge. And that was sent from Dieter Stern, Corporate Public Relations Director, TSR Inc. So, they were getting bigger, but, Public Relations Director. So he might have been super important. Now, I didn't look up who this was specifically. I hadn't heard the name so I just found this the other day. So I hadn't heard the name come out to the lips of any of the historians or anyone who talks about the different aspects of the game. So I don't know where he falls into it. Maybe I should look that up. And so they gave this document. They sent me this, which has a whole bunch of press clippings and kind of discussions and that sort of thing. And so then they gave a bunch of facts. Top 10 best-selling toys in '82. Talked a little bit about Steven Spielberg used Dungeons & Dragons in part for the casting of blockbuster motion picture E.T. Libraries, they talk about libraries across the country are using it. And so this was even, if you think about it, this was even before we think about that as being a real common thing these days, where we talk about students playing D&D in schools to help youth who can break out of their shells or have socialization issues, what have you. I've listened to a lot of podcasts where they talked about that sort of thing. Even then, they were talking about back in the 80s how this might help with those situations. And so they have a set here that talks about specifically kind of what's D&D about by Gary himself. The entire reason for the existence of the D&D game system can be explained at the same time its appeal is summed up. This can be done briefly. In fact, it can be done with a single word. That word is fun. The single word and key of all is fun. And then they had an interview with Gary that was in, Game News. They also provided something from Dr. Joyce Brothers. That's right, the Dr. Joyce Brothers of fame in those times that talked about what benefits the D&D game has and what it is. And we actually have, Peter Shipman, a psychologist from the University of Wisconsin, kind of in the Midwest neighborhood where I am. And he studied the game and how it's used to help players. It helps teach players to socialize, but also teach players through actual experience the value of cooperation and consequences of non-cooperation. And even mentions, such as chaotic characters described to double-cross the rest of the group. So Dr. Joyce Brothers even was talking at those times about the benefit. And so it's rather long. They show part of, and this is Games Magazine. Actually, I used to have a subscription to Games Magazine, but it had a list of the Hall of Fame, and Dungeons and Dragons right up there in the list with Clue, Monopoly, Diplomacy, Scrabble. I don't know what Acquire is, actually. Sorry, Risk, Yahtzee. Okay. Yahtzee is one of those things where they sell a ton of them, but no one ever plays it more than once, it seems. Maybe that's just my group. And then another article that talks about, here's a student who's talking about, them playing, as a dungeon master and the benefits it provides. So anyway, let's see if there was any. I skimmed through this before I decided to make the video, but there's a lot of reading material here, and I can't get through that. And we got articles that describe D&D as being just fun, what it does to help provide relaxation and enjoyment, and it talks about how you defend generally good and right, and that's what it provides some real benefit. They had an article where kids themselves dispute it by talking about the benefits of the game. Here's when it said, indeed, the popularity of Dungeons & Dragons is just tip of the iceberg of what occult is doing, some attorney said in California. And then the student says, hogwash, says a group of young sorcerers here in Edwardsville. So that's kind of funny. But anyway, apparently there was at some point, some talk that a student took the life of his brother, and somebody, I guess, blamed it on D&D at the time, and this is in '84. And then the family itself said they discounted any connection with that death. So even, people who were hit by these tragedies understood that just didn't make sense. Article about where there was a suicide scare. Students talking about how the game's not evil and what it can do. So anyway, there's lots of stuff. Let me kind of get through this a little bit. So talk about what the game teaches. A minister responds. So here's a minister talking about where the benefits are and where the criticisms are kind of like not in the right spot. So a lot of people talking out. I think this is a transcript of Sunday morning CBS with Corel that talks about D&D and kind of says, hey, somebody told this correspondent, this is evil, no doubt about it. And then a psychologist was interviewed. She defended the game. So it's actually funny, all these psychologists. So when there was, this one little box, they talk about, well, there's a lot of people who know what this is and are talking about it. But when you get down to it, psychologists and professionals, they actually didn't think that way, which is pretty cool. So anyway, there's a lot in here. So like I said, these are all articles from the time, from 84, 85, 83. And I really appreciated that what was really cool is TSR actually did get back to me. So I wrote them a letter asking for material. And somebody there, maybe it was Dieter, they spent time going through and photocopying this. And I'm assuming this was a packet that it had, and it was just making another photocopy. And then they mailed it to me. And I kept it for a lot of years because I thought historically it was pretty interesting to understand what happened in those days. Because I remember, there used to be a store in my little tiny city that used to sell, they'd buy stuff from a discount from stores going out of business, and they would sell these things, sort of in bulk, just set them up on tables. You go into this warehouse, and there was rumor that there was a Fiends Folio, Deities and Demigods in the store, and I didn't have it, and I was so excited to get it. And so I rushed in there, and then one of my friends who, it's like, I want it too. We were rushing around the store trying to get it. In the end, he got it. He found it first. Funny thing is, he doesn't play anymore. Has gotten rid of it years ago, I'm sure. And it happened to be one that had the Cthulhu mythos in it, which, as we know, was historically something that had to get pulled out in the next printing because of the, there was a lawsuit alleged from the estate of somebody who they pulled some of these things from. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that because, obviously Cthulhu, he just opened it up to everybody. But anyway, it reminds me of that when he got that home, his parents were kind of like, whoa, what's with all these gods and, fantastical beings? What does that mean? And he had to explain to them what it meant. And part of the help was I had some of this material. So there you go. So TSR, thank you for sending this material. It helped out back in the day. Never was a problem for my parents, my grandmother, the folks who raised me. They were always very excited that I was enjoying a game, had a hobby, because I lived on kind of farm country and we worked hard, and it was great that we had a chance to get everybody to play when it was kind of nasty outside and you couldn't do baseball or whatever we usually did. So thanks again for watching Tabletop Tango. Again, look at the bubbles, subscribe, help us out. Support, all that good stuff. And hopefully this was enjoyable, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Adventure and intrigue, fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed.